Welcome to the potential future of StarCraft 2. With the rank 1 Terran in the world in the red, it's Team Liquid Clem, facing off against one of the best Protoss to challenge him. In the blue, we have Skyless, in a best-of-3 Terran versus Protoss showdown on the new proposed StarCraft 2 balance patch. And before we get started, it'd be incredible if you could smash that like button, or maybe even subscribe. Help me count the algorithm. And Jimmy, what are we at? 1,861 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I can do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far, and hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As we start things off, maybe taking a little bit longer, as 8 workers was the count, and well, things might look a little similar past that. And we got all the patch notes on the screen, but the most important one, by an order of magnitude, is not the 8 worker start. As, maybe I'll make a video explaining, despite the flashiness of the change. But by far, the most important change is Warp Gate, or the lack thereof. Warp Gate has been moved to the gateway, and Jimmy, put this up right now. And after you research Warp Gate, you must spend 50 minerals and 50 gas to turn each individual gateway into a Warp Gate. This has led to many Protoss just skipping the upgrade entirely. Now, it's not all bad. You can now build units out of gateways about 30%, 35% more quickly after the Warp Gate research is done. They figured it out, the competition. But I'm bringing this up because I know Skyless has pretty much stopped building Warp Gate. Yes, one of the top Protoss in Europe has just decided it's not good enough. All right, the cost is too high. And for the first time in quite a while, we're seeing a Stargate to open things up in Protoss versus Terran, usually considered to be fragile and a brittle opener. And I think still is, but it used to be too. But Skyless has been experimenting with a whole lot of different strategies that don't rely on early gateway units, which pretty much cuts out about 80 to 90% of the normal non-hero related builds in the current live StarCraft 2. So we'll see. But Clem coming across the map, he's got a Cyclone alongside some Marines, and 3 Adepts are not really enough to deal with it, but the shield battery is helping things out, and that means the Cyclone's on the other side, which doesn't leave it at home to defend. But he built a second one. Now, that one's also rallied across, so the Oracle just comes in, knowing there's probably not a Widow mod in this sort of scenario. The Cyclone on its way back. He locks on. Can he get the high ground? Yes, breaks the lock with the high ground vision. If there was a scan, it could have been a very, very unhappy start. The reason you don't usually see the Stargate is because of how easily it can fall apart. A single Cyclone, or even worse, a Widow mod, can easily knock an Oracle out of the sky. And the sheer cost of the Stargate itself, alongside the units being so expensive, makes it a difficult choice. But not so difficult that we don't have a fleet beacon to start things off. I said he was trying new things. And maybe some of those things are very, very old instead. Carrier Rush? Mothership? Tempest? No, it's Flux Veins, Void Rays, Arranged Phoenixes. I seriously doubt that. Warp Gate has not been researched. Not for the production speed, not for the Warp Gates itself. He's leaning on another gate. The Stargate. And it's a mech Protoss style, almost purely. Now, unfortunately, you can't contract out the... You'd think the SCVs you could contract out as mercenaries and repair your units, but no, the Protoss lost that technology a long time ago. And that is actually very relevant. Because part of the reason that it's so difficult to make this sort of style work, especially against Terran, is because between EMP and Vikings, just in general, you're very likely to take some hull damage in a fight, even if you keep your units alive, which is not necessarily the case so much in Protoss versus Zerg, or even Protoss against Protoss. But there's a lot of going back and forth, and I think Clem starting to realize that Skyless is, instead of going for that aggressive blink style that we know and some of you might love and many Terrans are upset about, instead going for full turtle toss. And the Tempest is spotted, which obviously gives away the fleet beacon, and it's already too late to do anything about it. At least at this stage. 1 Tempest, okay. 2 Tempest, 3 Tempest, that's straight out. 4 Tempest, forget about it. So, Clem, he's got the triple threat, the stim, the combat shield, the +1 infantry weapons, which is usually great to have some sort of timing attack. But instead, a second starport is on the way. And this is exactly the dynamic early game that we were trying to create with the new patch. Starting with less workers. Okay, I'm going to get into it early because I feel strongly about it. I love the idea of the change. But just cutting 4 workers out of the equation has made players, now that they've kind of figured it out, not aggressive, but instead even more defensive because players have just gotten really good over the last 11 years. The last time we had less than 8 workers was 2015, just 4 years ago. And players have gotten very good with the units as they are right now. You can get a lot more, especially on defense. So, and Clem, obviously, one of the notable examples of players who has come to the forefront in, you know, less than that last decade. Because Legacy of the Void was released half of his life ago. So here we are. Mass Tempest Colossus Extended Thermal Lance has begun. It's going to be a slow burn, but sometimes that's more fun. The Viking count is building up. And I do think a lot of people... Now, we have time. The beauty of it is we have time to reminisce. If you think that Wings of Liberty or Heart of the Swarm are filled with high action-packed games, you might be forgetting the 12 to 15 minutes of build-up before one big fight where someone just loses. Now, I'm not saying that will happen, but I'm saying, well, we're at 8.5 minutes. So far, 1 observer and 4 Marines, and Clem can't really attack into this. Alright, there are a few more minerals and gas in each base, which means you can spend a little bit longer building up before you start mining out. And, I'm actually surprised Clem's moving out at all before 200 supply, which could be a mistake, or it could be an opportunity. Skillus is not taking any chances. This army cannot move out. If you move out from beyond the cannons, the shield batteries, you're dead. Very simple. The Tempests are not so great on the open field. The Colossi need to be able to concentrate their very little fire, and there's almost nothing else underneath. He's got a couple of mortals, a few adepts. He has more cannons than he has gateway units. No warp gate. As we continue to play Build Order Simulator, 5 Vikings at a time. Clem with 18 Vikings. He's going for a Scandinavia build here. And gonna try to invade the Protoss lands and pillage their probes. But, as we... Well, citizens arrest the Adept. He stims. He may get 1... No. 1 SCV has died. I don't believe it was here. I think it might have been earlier on. Oh, through the Oracle. But as we hit the 10-minute mark, the armies continue to build. Carriers in production. A scan on the 4th base. And that might be the focal point for Clem. As, well, 22 Vikings. So... Also notable, Skillus is not going for Storm. His Storm is a great historical and practical counter to the Vikings. But without Warp Gate, he doesn't have any gateways. Oh my. A single volley of Viking fire easily able to take out any individual unit, except for that Tempest, apparently, as there's more than enough damage. The Tempests are kiting back, but the Marines and Marauders just take out the Nexus. And... well, the Tempests have more range than the Vikings, but they're not particularly suited to dealing with them directly. And, well, more cannons on the way. Skillus is going to try to cannon creep his way over to a 4th base. Clem has now a 4th and a 5th on the way. He's got +2 ship weapons and +2 ship armor. Well, mech armor, but only being used for one type of unit right now. Ghost Academy in production. The Ghost is, well, it has less HP. It costs 3 supply instead of 2. But it has more base range, and snipe is no longer interruptible. That's not going to be relevant here. So, generally, arguably, but, well, it has more damage overall. I need to explain that part of things. The Ghost used to do 10 damage per hit, plus 10 versus life. So pretty good against Zealots and Zerglings. This game is so interactive on 8 workers. Clem really enjoying the high-paced action of sitting there waiting until he maxes out on Vikings. Yeah, bro, I love it, says Skillis. So much variety now. It looks like... So, there's so much variety in the game, Clem has decided to try his hand at commentating during it. So, I want to point something out as well. A lot of you know that Clem is our first biracial player in StarCraft 2. The first player to, on a professional level, on a regular basis, play 2 races. He decided TVT wasn't for him. He played Protoss against Terran instead. On the new patch, he's playing Terran against Terran. He has not played Protoss against Terran. He's now going mass nukes. Underrated advantage. I'm not sure which... is that you can listen to a podcast on the second screen. You don't listen on a screen, Skillis. Typical Protoss. So you can also educate it yourself. As you can tell, the player's enthused about the gameplay. We are really going back to that Wings of Liberty, Heart of the Swarm style of sitting in your base for 15 minutes until you get a death ball of air units. And I desperately need to push back on the idea that 8 workers is somehow going to solve that. Check out Zombie Grub's video on how the economy works in StarCraft 2. And the very simple fact is in most games of StarCraft 2, you can get a great economy. It might take a little longer with less workers to start, but it's just simply impossible not to in most cases. Especially since players are so good at microing their early game units now, it's a lot more likely. Originally, the game was designed for maps like Steppes of War. Well, that was not the greatest nuke of... I think he could have just fired it over the top. He's building 10 gates. Does he have Warp Gate now? Yes. Is he going to build out of gates like it's 1999? It appears so. Clem has 2 nukes. He's activated the solar flare of scans. There it is. Are you nuking your base for fun? You don't know. We saw the nuke shadow actually fly here. Does he notice? Did he not see it? How does he not see it? 16 probes! What? The mass nuke! I have no idea how Skillis missed that one, but maybe the podcast was too engrossing. What podcast do you listen to? Some Radio Lab or something? Gotta get educated. 4 nukes on the way, 5 more missile turrets. The missile turret count skyrocketing more than the missile turrets themselves. Another nuclear launch detected. As Clem unleashes a volley of scans, like a self-checkout aisle over here, and it looks like Skillis might be checked out of this game entirely. He's, 200. I'm almost ready. All right. Wonder if Clem will give him some breathing room here. As we have, well, he has 8 orbital commands, 6 nuclear missiles. He's going the missile turret count is at 30. Another nuke. I don't know if Skillis is intentionally... I can barely see it. The scans for Skillis are not that red tinge that we have as observers. But still, they seem to be... Oh, wait, it's happening! Here's the fight! Oh, the EMP's over everything! The Vikings kiting back. The Phoenix is trying to cover. There's approximately 1 metric fuck ton of missile turrets here, though. And the interceptors are getting thinned out pretty quickly. He's down to 50 of them. Which, does he have... He doesn't have high-sec auto-tracking or building armor, which is actually quite an oversight. He's warping in, as he's paid the warp tax, but just kiting back with the Vikings. Skillis. Well, I think that it went okay for Skillis, but his interceptors are wiped out. And Clem has a lot to fall back on. Skillis doesn't have a huge economy. This isn't like the 8-base Protoss. He's on 4 bases. Clem is gaining quite a huge income advantage. There goes the mothership. The interceptors are almost entirely wiped out by the mass missile turret. And the Stalkers are blinking forward, and there's almost no ground army. But thankfully, the Vikings are actually some of the best anti-Stalker units when they eventually land. Some more Ghosts. He just walks on by the Stalkers. There's Immortals. He's gonna land the Vikings. They are 3-3 Vikings. Like, they are actually amazing against Stalkers. Did you know a Stalker, like a Viking on the ground can 1v1 a Stalker with even upgrades? And it's not that close. They get a bonus against mechanical units, which thankfully is everything Skillus built this game. I think besides Adepts. But Skillus still going forward. The EMPs. We're down to it. They both spent a lot of money on static defense. And that means, well, the boys are pulled. The Ghosts, as part of the fighting units on the back line. Clem has so many orbital commands, though, that I think, Yep. Well, quite a dramatic conclusion. You can kind of see the players' thoughts on the patch. I don't know how much the 8 workers affected it, but the turtling to mass carrier certainly is not the sort of style that, honestly, I think either of these players want to play. And, well, a pretty dramatic conclusion after a relatively sparse early, mid, and up to late game. But Clem does take the victory. And I think that Clem was... If he hadn't gone mass nuke, mass missile turret... The missile turrets helped. Skillus probably didn't need to attack into all of them, but... If he hadn't been scanning 16 times instead of 1 or 2, then he would have been in an even more comfortable position. Now, Skillus could have gone for Storm, but EMP is still an existential threat across the board, and Storm was nerfed in damage to just 100 now, over 6 or so seconds. Oh, Skillet. All right, well, we're going to get a little more interactive here, it looks like. As Skillus with the proxy gate. A Max Packs build? From, of course, Max Packs, Clem's greatest nemesis throughout StarCraft 2 history. Hero may have overtaken him recently, but Max Packs definitely inspiring Clem's Protoss as well. But the Max Packs build of, instead of proxying a gate and building a gate at home, or proxying 2 gates, or just 1 gate, it's a macaroni and cheese build. And I think that Skillus is embracing that idea. And building up to 200 supply and then fighting Clem on the open field. Didn't go incredible for him. The effective neutering of Warp Gate, though, has... Okay. I've been waiting for a patch to come through to fix some of the more glaring bugs, not even talking about design. But I think I may need to make another video because it doesn't seem like we're going to get that patch, but doing this overhaul of the Warp Gate mechanic and the 8-worker start at the same time is like trying to learn how to play piano while cooking a souffle. Neither of which I'm very good at in varying degrees, but those are two... the ability... There's so many different variables that it's impossible. Well, anyways. Looks like we have some dynamic interaction, though, early on. And this is not a unique occurrence. A lot of the players are now speaking of variety and dynamic interaction in a maybe less than serious sense. But here we are. The charge lot... No. Sorry, reflex. The Zealots slashing through the command center of the low ground. Clem didn't scout nearly early enough to realize what was going on, but the Reaper is dancing around. He's getting a concussive shell Marauder behind it, but the Zealots get 1 slash. Bunker on the high ground. Grenade. Actually, perfect grenade buys a little bit more time, and that Marauder's about to pop out. I think the bunker is about to finish. And if concussive shells is done, he can just... Wow, Clem's micro is just obscene. This is ridiculous. He's defending against 2 Zealots and a Stalker with a Reaper and eventually a Marauder. Successfully. But there's a second Stalker coming in, which is going to complicate things. Concussive shells is incredibly important. I think he needs an SCV or two, maybe. Concussive shells and one more shot. Kite's back. The grenades have been on point. He's got the shells. Gets to the high ground. No vision for Skillis. And loses one Zealot. Another Stalker's on the way. And, well, those Marauders can't heal. Medevacs are a long way off. He gets one targeted. Uses the Reaper. Snipes it off. But the Zealots almost hit on the way out. The boys are pulled. The Marauder one hit away. And just cancels the command center after committing so much to trying to save it. But Skillis, with a strong early pressure. And now the Stargate, of course. Marauders. Now, Skillis really leveraging that early game pressure. Clem, I think a little spiteful. The correct call when he saw the second Stalker was very likely cancel the command center. It is not a mathematical possibility. If Skillis is paying attention and Clem can micro, he can dance around. Unless he's willing to commit SCVs, then there's no situation where two Marauders and a Reaper deal with 2 to 3 Stalkers and 2 Zealots. And if they do, why is Protoss even in the game still? I don't... But Clem was hoping that maybe he made a critical mistake. He got 1 or 2 of his units, his Stalkers most importantly, sniped off for free. And then there's a chance. And he kind of languished a while with that expansion. Wow! The tech tree is growing like a bamboo shoot right now. Robotics Bay is on the way. A Colossus Den, as well as Phoenixes. And we're not even bothering with Warp Gate. Even though it's still only 50-50 to start the research. I don't know what we're doing with Warp Gate. It's ridiculous. We need to fix the bugs, but and also then we can actually talk. I'm here. I'm not going to be unbiased. This is very important to me. I don't know why I say that like this entire channel where I've casted literally thousands upon thousands of games. Believe it or not, I do care about the game a bit. Maybe even a bite. Widowmine drop. Phoenix picks up another one. The first one does manage to escape after getting the sacrificial probe. It's going to be Stargate again. We'll see what Clem has to deal with it. He's got the 2 racks behind. He's working up towards... Oh, make that 3 racks behind. He's working up towards medevacs. He's going to try to save the first Widowmine drop, and I think he will. The Marines actually strip the shields and do a little bit of hull damage. A Colossus and a Phoenix on the way. It's an old build, but it just certainly checks out. Well, the biggest issue with this unit composition, Phoenix Colossus, is it all dies to Vikings. Vikings are the counter to both, though it's a numbers game. All right, there's a surprising amount of math involved. He's building sentries, a sentry out of his proxy gate, which Clem has not scouted yet, by the way, just to be clear. SCV ready. He has to know it was a proxy, right? Though, since there is no warp gate, the fact that there's a proxy gate and a pylon there is significantly less important. Though this sentry may accidentally scout all of this in the most awkward fashion. He recalls the sentry. Clem had to see that. But there's already a Colossus done. And the Phoenix is here. He shoots his own Widowmine. Just a desk pop to start things off. And combat shield is completed. There's no +1 attack. And there's no Vikings. Which means he can't go. Right? Like, he's getting a second starport now. But there's already a second star gate finishing for Skillis. With the second Colossus, this is going to be a hard no. Yeah. An extended thermal lance, it's not going to happen. He can't go up that ramp. He does not have an engineering bay for upgrades. I mean, Skillis doesn't have the upgrades either, but I think it's more meaningful, especially for the Terran who's on these conventional units without splash damage, to focus on the upgrades a little more, where Protoss is about the unit composition. In fact, he's going for +1 air. Skillis is on the chase. He's got 2 Colossi with extended thermal lance. He could chase here. Because if the Marines turn around for more than a split second, the Colossi will incinerate them. And the Phoenixes can potentially pressure the medevacs as well. Which is another bonus of having this kind of Stargate start. And a fleet beacon is on the way. Here we go again. Colossus out in front. No third command center. He's building 4 Vikings at a time. But the Phoenix count, he's already at 9 Phoenixes. And he's building 2 more. He definitely saw that observer, right? And then he sees the proxy. This is his only gate. Which is a little awkward. Well, unless you count Stargates, which obviously we don't, because those are different buildings entirely. Don't be pedantic. The mech Protoss. Phoenix range and carriers are on the way. As Clem going to try his hand at a more dynamic attack. Scans for observers. There are none there, but he's going to try to move forward. That's a lot of Phoenixes, and he has no ghosts. EMP would be wildly helpful here. But Clem is on a very limited economy. He's on 46 SCVs. He hasn't built any more for quite a while. Cutting back. The Vikings outranging all of this. But they can't get... Well, the awkward part is there's no real ground to air. There's only 3 Stalkers. So the anti-air is actually just the Phoenixes. And unleashing some more volleys. But 3 shield batteries in production. Clem rotating around. Mothership halfway done. Phoenix range. Gonna be an important equalizer, but a first Tempest. He goes, knocks down a Colossus and a Tempest. Target fire, gets another Colossus, and with only 1, well, he's just gonna start tearing his way into the natural. The medevacs are overworked, underpaid. More Phoenixes. He's draining the energy of these shield batteries. Clem just still chunking his way through here. A single Immortal. There's actually several more Immortals underneath. The Tempests are coming out. The Vikings still trying to trade. The shield batteries are kind of staggered, so the Colossus can still move between them. Kind of surprised Clem isn't committing even harder here. He stims. He's going for it, but the Mothership might be just in time. She's on her way out. Sliding forward. That's a big stim and a lot of damage across the board. Really... Does he not have a scan? He's only on 2 orbitals. He doesn't have a scan. The Mothership saves the day. At the last second, the scan's available, and the cloak will run out, I think, right around the time the scan ends. Time warp, though. The Viking count is starting to dwindle. That Colossus has lived through it all. He's building another... Oh, he's already got 2 again. And Clem, there might have been a moment to break through. But the... queues up 4 more. Thing is, there's almost nothing at the natural. 1 cannon, 1 shield battery. That's nothing compared to what he's had so far. Plus 1 infantry weapon's about to complete. Skillless moving in, but the Vikings are intercepted. He'll lose the Nexus. But, well, the Phoenixes are trying to move forward. The Marines are stimming underneath. He's trying to target, I think, a Colossus. It's very hard to tell what's going on. And when there's a unit that's almost as large as your mother overhead of everything, it's actually, I think he tried to target, he got a Colossus to 50 HP. That might have been from earlier. I think he misclicked a Tempest when he was trying to target a Colossus. And, literally clicking on the Colossi when there's this, cornucopia of units coagulating all over the place here, I think that was the issue. There's no way he wanted a Tempest more than he wanted one of the 2 Colossi dead. But a split second is all it takes. Clem's army. Skills is at 69 probes, which is a very nice position against Clem, who's at 47 workers, and he just lifted his main command center, and he just dropped a mule. How long on Cloak? It's available. He has no scans. The Cloak. I think the Cloak just wins the game. If there's a fight in the next, 20 seconds, He can't do anything about the cloak. He literally has no detection. If you can't see it, you can't kill it. He's gonna try to take down the mothership, but the time warp is good. The Phoenixes, the Tempests, and Clem plummets 40 supply. He finally has the scan straight into GG. What a combo. Skilless strikes back with the proxy gate into carriers, which sounds like quite a stretch, and it was. But Clem not really finding an opportunity. Maybe there was a time he could have broken through, but because he has no economy behind, if he ever commits his whole army, that's it. But of course, if he takes too long, it's also it. It just takes a bit longer to get there. So we're all tied up. Skilless holding the line. The mech toss coming through. Sure, Clem with his thoughts on the viability of such strategies, but Zero, well, I guess we saw Warp Gate in Game 1, but I do not believe he had the Warp Gate research in Game 2 at all. It's a extreme late game upgrade, which is an interesting idea and kind of undermines the whole idea of Protoss. Now, what would I do? Winter, how would you break the game? And not in a clickbait title fashion. I would put Warp Gate right back where it was. And my crazy suggestion that from a lore and thematic perspective, it's kind of bad. But I think from a game design perspective, just take warping in off the warp prism. Why is it that Terran, we're talking about the live server, not the games we just watched. Why is it that Terran has to turtle against Protoss? Why is almost every game that goes past 2 bases, like 3 or 4 base Terran, turtling infinitely against the Protoss who has the entire map? It is because the moment you move out, 40 supply of charge lots, maybe even DTs, are going to hit your base. That's a big part of why there's not a lot of mid-game back and forth, is because the Warp Prism can bring in an entire army at once. I'd love to see the Warp Prism get a significant cost reduction. Like, it currently costs 250, 75, I want to say 75 minerals. It takes quite a bit to build, 36 seconds. Now, what if we remove the warping capability, but we made it like 150 minerals, and it built faster? We could call it like a transport or something, like a shuttle, even. And I know that kind of removes one of the most thematic parts of Protoss, but I'd like to see... So personally, I really love the juggling micro. Like, the Warp Prism has that longer pickup range than any other transport. And you can do some really cool micro with it. And we don't see that used too often because it's so important to just keep your Warp Prism alive, and it takes a significant portion. One, it's pretty heavy on the minerals, and it takes a lot of your robo time. So occasionally we'll see it used for juggling, but mostly it's just a pylon in places that people don't want pylons to be. So if I was going to make a big change to Warp Gate without completely gutting the idea and reworking it from the ground up poorly, which is what I think we have now, I would target the Warp Prism, because the Warp Prism is the reason, for much of the reason, why, now, you might be like, well, you can just do proxy pylons. Specifically the threat of it in your main base. You can't just build a bunch of missile turrets or keep half your Vikings at home. The same is also kind of true for Zerg, but not as much so. There's a lot more run-bys, but that's a whole different matchup. TVP is so turtly. And still is, despite the changes here, because there's been no changes to the actual dynamic. It's just encouraged to be, what the okay, well, okay. That's enough of that. I thought maybe we'll just get another standard macro game. No, this is escalating. This keeps going. I'm channeling my inner tastosis and ignoring the production tab for 4 minutes, but I can ignore it no longer because there is a pylon outside the natural and a void ray in production. And I think this is a shield battery. Why is there even a pylon? He's going to build shield batteries, right? The void ray is spotted. There's a cyclone on the way. Yes! Shield batteries in your face. Good day, sir. Oh, no. Shades of Hero. Clem. Well, the Marines just kind of come down the ramp. He kills the shield better if he loses the probe. The pylon, of course, the powerhouse of the Protoss. But the probe channels that power. Another shield battery. Another kill. Not even a cancel. Quite a lackadaisical situation here. He really needs to... He does not have the minerals to spare. And the Void Ray taking a lot of damage. The Cyclone trying to lock on, but the Marines kind of push it out of the way because these units are a bit unwieldy, terrestrially bound, but the probe survives. The Cyclone doesn't pick off the Void Ray. The Stalker... Oh no, he's supply blocked to the next Void Ray! Did he kill his own probe? I think he may have. He killed his... Wait, did he kill the probe at the front? Skillis, what are you doing? Skillis kills his own probe. There's no probe, and it's not in the unit's lost tab. He needed 4 supply for the Void Ray. He lights it up. The shield batteries are helping out. He sends another probe across. Clem didn't notice. It could have been picked off by the Reaper, which is still alive, by the way. The shield batteries are completely drained. And the Reaper's just working on the probe. There's nothing at home to defend. He can't warp in. He's building a Stalker. Clem, of course, microing. The Stalker will slow this down, but he may kill off 1 or 2 more probes. He's just gonna go for it. He knows it's gonna die. All right, 2 more probes. But this haphazard shield battery rush is it's well, he's scanning to see if it's continuing. That is, I guess it's very important here to know if there's even more on the way. So I'm kind of surprised that he committed that, because well, the obligation is the important part. Like, do you need to continue building Cyclones and Vikings? Is it just going to be 2 Void Rays, or is he just going to keep building them? Well, there's 3, so... Clem! Just some of that Jiggle Peak micro there. This is not the first time he's been Void Ray rushed outside his base, like, even this week. If you watched Hero vs. Clem, spoilers, but please watch Hero vs. Clem. Desperate, I beg you. If nothing else this entire year, at least so far, that would be the series. You can find the clickbait, I'm sure. Because it is the best tournament I've ever seen. At least of recent memory. I don't like the scans here. Now that we're getting all opinionated. I think it is a bit... Well, I think scanning for a base on the other side would be more relevant. It's working out for him. Skillis is not breaking through. The Viking count will eventually be high enough to deal with this. He's doing some long-range shield battery plays here. But the Vikings are just better. Like, if he has 2 Vikings for every Void Ray, this is not going to be close. And the siege tanks are working on the shield batteries, which is the only really equalizer here. He's building another pylon out in front. Clem just shelling his way through the scan on the natural. But, well... The Marines and Cyclones. The Void Rays are not good enough. Well, let's see. GG! As Clem puts it down. I think there was potential there, but Skillis with a bit of a haphazard execution, and Clem was very aware of that fact. He's been shield battery rushed by Hero. Everything else pales in comparison. Skillis, I don't know. It feels like he's done that before, but maybe not very many times. It had potential, but the moment the shield batteries got knocked out without a cancel, put him pretty far behind economically. Which brings us to our anti-spoiler game, of course, where we see if Big Gabe, Hero Marine, can take on Skillis and do what... Well, follow up Clem at the very least. I know for a fact he has a similar take, but... So, I really do recommend Zombie Greb's video. And Jimmy, link it in the description, where she goes heavily in depth to the statistical So, we've had some crazy debates about the economy and whether 12 workers or 8 workers or 6 workers and how it works and how it interacts, how it compares to Brood War. And we had those discussions in 2015 with the beta of Legacy of the Void, when we went from 6 workers to 12. And all the same principles apply, since the way the economy works has not been changed significantly since then. The summary is, and this is what really stuck out to me, and please watch the video, because I am just going off of memory and interpretation, or vibes, if you would, but the simple fact, and the SC2 will never be Brood War. I know, Brood War fans who made it this far, great on you, thank you. Yes, Brood War is the best strategical game ever, because there's always an evolving strategy. 1, because we change the maps on a regular basis. And 2, because no one can ever play perfect, or even close to it. Even Flash, after breaking his wrists at the age of 14, rebuilding them 6 times over in order to keep winning championships, it takes 200 APM to make your workers learn how to mine minerals. It takes another 200 APM to build units, since you can only select 1 building at a time. There is no physical way that anyone can actually do all that perfectly. Those are things that in StarCraft 2 take about 10 APM. Queue up a few workers a minute, they automatically rally. Queue up a few units on your single control group of buildings. And that is a great thing, because that way people will actually play the game. People might be like, what about Brood War? Okay, there's a whole bunch of Koreans and one 40-year-old guy from New Hampshire. Who is effectively Korean. Shout out to Artosis. But past that, it might be fun to watch, but nobody's getting into it nowadays. Because the barrier to entry is obscenely high. I've played, it's on this channel, I think, where I played my placement matches. I played like 20 or 30 games on Brood War. I had 200-something APM. I lost every single game in the E-League, which is like bronze, to 300-something APM Koreans. And APM isn't everything, but I think it's a lot more in Brood War. Not just because it's in StarCraft time, but because it's a literal measure. Brood War's like running a marathon while having a philosophical debate during it. If you can't keep up, you can't even be in the debate. All right? So using it as a comparison for how a strategy game should work is just simply not realistic. Because StarCraft 2 is a modern game, it is still the best RTS ever made. Technologically, you can debate design, but nobody's beat it. And unfortunately or fortunately, because your workers have more than 6 IQ figuring out how to get to a mineral patch, or doing it on their own, because you could select multiple buildings at a time, because your entire army moves as a beautiful, beautiful, smooth blob that can walk right through splash damage and all die in a single second, and it doesn't take 200 APM to move 50 Zerglings from one side to the other. That's why, while some of the design of Brood War might work for SC2, it doesn't really make sense to compare it. But I've buried the lead here, as we have plenty of time to build up. I did see, I'm still going to keep pointing it out, that a lot of the more derogatory comments towards casters who don't like the 8-worker start, which I firmly count myself in now. I was mixed before, but I count myself in. They're just going to have to learn to fill more time, because they don't like, they want to just jump into the action instead of having the strategical build-up. In Brood War, most pro games end before you reach maximum realistic economy. In Brood War, because of the dumb workers and how they mine, that means like 70, 80 workers. That means like 4 or 5 bases. Because they don't do worker pairing in Brood War. Not very well. Whereas in SC2, your workers are not dumb. In order to get a maximum realistic economy, that is 3 to 4 bases. Which happens in most SC2 games. The average SC2 game is around, like, pro game is around 9 minutes. It only takes around 7 to 8 minutes to get near that maximum economy. Maybe it'll take more with the new patch. Whereas Brood War, the average pro game takes less time than it usually takes to get max economy. And that stands out, because once you reach max economy, you don't have to do... That's not a factor anymore. You don't have to spend time on infrastructure, spend time on economy itself. There's no give and take on that. You've reached death ball status, even if you don't put all your army together, because you no longer have the expenses of building up infrastructure economy. And that is a distinct difference between how StarCraft 2 and StarCraft 1 work, just for comparison. Though it isn't a distinct difference necessarily in this game, where Big Gabe has a bunch of Marines and a single Marauder, and Skillus has 2 Immortals, 4 Adepts, a Sentry, and a very important Stasis, and stop right there, criminal scum! Oh, and I feel like I would get demonetized if we heard whatever Hero Marine was saying at this moment. Though, this is kind of an awkward situation. The Stasis catches so much of the army that it just kind of puts a pause on the whole attack. It doesn't slice the army in half, but instead it just... Yeah, and then the attack will continue. Did Stim? So when you're in stasis, does Stim continue? I think so. I think he was still stimmed. The rest of the unit stimmed after. The Colossus comes out to save the day. Literally the only unit. But if he didn't hit that stasis, I think he just dies. He did, so he doesn't. And he don't. Incinerates another 4 Marines. The Colossus racks up 15 kills. And Big Gabe is cut down to size. And a fleet beacon is already on the way as Skillus is once again showing his mech toss inclinations. No warp gate. All the gateway units have been removed from the field, and the only ones he's building are sentries for Guardian Shield, which is wildly helpful as a force multiplier. Guardian Shield reducing all range damage taken by everything within the shield by 2, which is like almost 30% of Marines' attack damage. It helps against Marauders. It's great. It's like having +2 shield and armor. Which obviously against Marines and Marauders, which don't hit that hard, but hit very fast, a huge deal. And they're all ranged. It's of less use against Zerg, usually, because there's a lot of melee damage, which it does nothing against. But still very helpful against Hydras, Roaches, Ravagers. Lurkers. Probably not as much against Lurkers, but here we go. So, Skillus with a 3rd base finished, even before Hero Marine. The follow-up attack, but there's 2 that's it. 2 Colossi, a Sentry. This scattered sort of shield battery cannon defense. 2 Tempests on the way. What? Scouting Tempest. Classic. Just a casual gate out in front as well. Did he? No. That's another gate. An odd choice. Well, sometimes you can kind of mess with the pathing of units. I don't think that's really the intent there, but... No warp gate. The only upgrade is extended thermal lance. He's going for +1 air weapons. Whereas Big Gabe is, well, Vikings and Bio. And there's not... He can't attack in, right? Like... Now... So... Why did the new patch make this better? I'm not 100% sure it did. But generally, having a lower economy to start means you can put less units on the field early, which makes force multiplier units a better investment. The Oracle is a standout example of a unit that having one is... Well, having one Oracle essentially kept Skillus alive in this game. That Stasis put a stay on his execution long enough for the Colossus to come out and save the day. So, and every attack you do when you have less workers back at home is significantly more committed. It is a lot less likely you'll be able to quickly follow it up or recover economically. So, But here's the thing. Units take the same amount of time to go from point A to point B, even if there's less back at home, which means neither player really willing to risk a big portion of their arm. Well, Hero Marine was, and he literally and figuratively, but mostly literally got burned for it. So, Armory, Ghost Academy, 3 more barracks. I think Hero Marine may be underestimating the gravity of the situation and the commitment to the Sky Toss here. Mothership is 3/4 of the way done. The Stim, the Marines, and there goes the 4th base. The Colossi up top. He does not have any ground weapons, which means the Colossi are pretty... giving the Marauders a sauna treatment here, really. But they keep the Marines from getting anywhere close. That's really the main purpose. At least until the Viking count is so high that he has to worry about other things. And 12 Vikings against 4 Tempests and 3 carriers. But he's building 3 carriers at a time. There is a point at about half a dozen carriers, which we just hit, that you don't care at all. Unless they have... Well, Hero Marine is not going for pure Viking. Clem went for like 30-something Vikings. Enough Vikings so no matter what, he's one-shotting you. Hero Marine is a bit more bio-curious here. 16 Vikings, 16 Marauders, 34 Marines, and a couple Ghosts mixed in now. Though the Mothership Cloak, the preemptive scan, but Guardian Shield. Oh, there's the Time Warp. No Guardian Shield, actually, but the Tempest. Revelation to give the Tempest range. And then, of course, once you tag him, you can bag him. There goes the Ghost. Obliterated. He's just stimming forward. There's only... Well, there's 3 Colossi. He's stimming forward. It's... Well... Kiting back. The Medevac's doing what they can. He knocked out the majority of the Interceptors, which seems to be the focus here. Building a 4th starport now. The Oracle gets a last revelation. Might actually do a good job of masking the fact there's an observer right there during all this. And a fusion core is on the way. The only thing I could think of is, well, technically battle cruisers, but I seriously doubt it. Caduceus reactor for medevac energy regen would be kind of a huge deal. The less medevacs you need, the more you can just build Vikings. We're up to 20 Vikings. 6 is building 2 more Stargates. Stargate Command is coming together in the main. Well, there's no storm. Not that it would necessarily be the be-all, end-all, especially with Ghosts and the maneuverability of Vikings. Also, really, it's just that he's strapped for gas. You can't go mass carrier with upgrades and also have enough gas left over for any meaningful amount of Templar. And also, he doesn't really have any gateways. So there's that. He could build Templar out of gateways like a psychopath, but... Well... Triple carrier. He's killing off his own Marauders in order to free up supply. 8 Liberators? Wow. Oh, he's gonna go Liberators? Because Liberators technically have a splash damage attack that can work against Interceptors. I don't think those Liberators are anti-ground at all. That's kind of a wild option here. He's clearly trying to free up some supply. The Marauders being offered up. Suicide by Colossus. He shoots a few more of his Marines. Traitors in our midst. Oh my. Wow. He has 77 SCVs. I feel like we could start there when we come to some of the sacrifices, but the main base is only now mining out. Mass Liberator. This is a completely different angle than Clem took against this sort of composition. I'm not sure if it's better, but he keeps shooting his Marines in order to free up more supply for Liberators. Neither side really has much money in the bank. It's +2 attack and +1 armor in the sky against 311. The missile turret count is quite high, but not nearly as dramatic as we saw in Clem's first game. The TPM, only 9 missile turrets, mostly for zoning out. He just mass recalled units to the front. So warp gate for Stargates, but with extra... And he needs to hold position. EMP across everything. The Liberators... okay. That's a lot of damage on the carriers. But it's not quite enough. I think he couldn't really decide whether he wanted the... Oh, and then we're just done. Okay. And that just kind of ends. All right, this is like Wings of Liberty. Just build a bunch of carriers and hope for the best. He did kill almost all of the interceptors. But almost all is not enough. And he had no money in the bank to build. So... Skilless had enough base... Huh. Well, it just kind of ends. A bit unceremonious there, but... We see big Gabe's take. And I think in a slightly better scenario, he definitely could have made the Liberators work, but... So, the 8-worker start. The most exciting thing to happen to StarCraft 2 in 11 years. And also, the least important part of the patch. And overall, a mistake, in my humble opinion. And mostly because it's been 2 weeks. Over 2 weeks when you're watching this. And I'm recording it. And we still haven't fixed the fact that Vipers cannot abduct siege tanks. That's in the patch notes, it's not in the game. The Orbital Command gives a free +2 supply to Terran, which actually skews every early game build. And there's a lot of issues surrounding the functionality of Warp Gate, like with hotkeys. And the Overlord is slower than Wings of Liberty. Anyways, 2 major game potentially breaking bugs. And there's been no communication. So I have no trust at this point in having a real testing process. And I don't think 8 workers is going to do anything close to what is described and create a more dynamic early game experience. And I think you can be... well, you saw the chat in game 1. The players don't seem to think so either. Now, the players can't necessarily be trusted to create entertaining gameplay. They want to win. But obviously, especially Clem, but also Skilless and his podcast. So, my suggestion is still have the 8-worker start on some of the maps, 3 to 5 out of a pool of 9, and then 12-worker start on the rest, so we can actually test the changes without throwing another massive variable in. Will that happen? Well, we'll see. But either way, thank you for watching. And yes, we're still putting out new patch vids because they do so well. A lot of people are interested, and that gets me really excited and super frustrated. Because it really sucks to have so many people get interested in the game for the first time in many, many years. I'm seeing a lot of new views on guides that won't even apply to an 8-worker start necessarily, but are still pretty good. The low APM challenge might be suggested. Still, good edutainment, but... It's the intern meme. It feels like there's one person at Blizzard that shows up every few months to do a patch with exactly 0 QA. And I don't... It's super frustrating. But I like to see all these people, you, me, everyone, caring so loudly. Because the game is only truly dead when no one cares at all. Which is thankful that we're going back towards Heart of the Swarm, which made me care again. So, thank you for watching. I hope it made your day at least a little bit better. And, well, hopefully the rant isn't too much. And I was waiting... You just click off the video. I was waiting for the hotfix or the next version of the PTR to do a video. But we still haven't gotten it. I've been waiting on that. I've got notes. Not just the notes you usually see, but actual notes. But, so. Thank you for watching. I see no reason. I'm still going to be casting. Frustration otherwise, there ain't nothing like it, so. But hopefully made your day a little bit better. If you got the means of motivation, you also check out Patreon, YouTube membership. But I hear liking and subscribing is still free, at least for now. And thank you to our military patrons, Big Jiggy, Devin Door, Kate, Crazy Mouse, Mario Suit. I just still enjoy it. Make sure to check out this video. Jimmy picked it out just for you, and we're going to edit this down. And thank you for watching. Hope to see you next time. Good luck, have fun. Stay chill.